Hello, all my crafty people out there. It is time for this week's project. And I think this is a pretty useful project, like most of ours, I hope. If you haven't been here before, my name is Stephanie, and I upcycle clothing, generally thrifted items, and we make either new clothing or accessories. So, this week we're going to be doing this. This is a t-shirt I thrifted. I think it was $3.99. It's a pretty color. I like the collar. I like a lower collar. I don't want something on my neck. And it's cute and all, but I want to wear it to the office, so I want to make it a little dressier. So we're going to be using this scarf, which again thrifted for $2.99, and we're going to make sleeves. So we're going to change out the short sleeves to have some nice puffy sleeves. I'm debating on whether or not they'll be cinched in at the bottom, like with elastic, or if we're just going to let them flow. We're going to see how it works. I have plenty of fabric here. It's a pretty wide and long scarf. So I think it'll be plenty enough for our sleeves. Anyway, if you like this kind of content, or if you just want to follow along and check us out, you can do that and subscribe, like, comment, let me know what you think, and let's get to the table. All right, this is the shirt we're going to be working with. It's Eddie Bauer. It's a good shirt. And it's in good shape. It's not super thin, which is nice. I'm going to cut the sleeves off. And when I cut the sleeves off, I'm going to leave this seam on the shirt side. I'm going to cut on the sleeve side and leave that seam. The reason I'm going to leave that seam is I think it'll be a good stable piece to sew to because it doesn't stretch. So I think we'll use this to sew our sleeve on and kind of stabilize it. This material is very thin and it doesn't stretch, but it's super, it's just scarf material. It's fine. So what I thought I might do, oh, and those are little owls, by the way. Can you see that? There's little owls. Anyway, I think we might incorporate some of this. I have some iron-on interfacing. It's black. And I think I may be able to incorporate this around the edge that I'm going to seam to the shirt to just give it some more stability. And when I put it under here, it really, I don't think it's gonna make a big difference as far as showing, especially being black. So this is something new for me. We'll figure out how to work with this. And I'm going to use the sleeves that I'm removing as a pattern to cut the ones that I'm going to replace them with. Now, these obviously will be much smaller than the ones I'm replacing them with, but we'll make that adjustment when we cut out this. And I may iron on the interfacing before we cut it out to give it that stability, and it'll keep it also from fraying. But I'm going to keep the seams, the seams that are already on the scarf, anywhere I possibly can, so we don't have any extra fraying or anything like that, because this is thin fabric. It will go on you quick. So let me cut the sleeves out, and again I'm going to cut on the sleeve side, and I'm going to leave this seam attached to the shirt, the body of the shirt. All right, we're going to try and make a sleeve that's going to fit like a sleeve into this shirt. So this is the cut off, one of the cut off sleeves, and it's still folded in half because it's still together. So I'm folding it in half where I'm trying to make it as even as possible here. So when I cut it, I'll get a good idea of, how it was originally put together. So we're just going to cut down the back here under the arm. And this is our sleeve. And what I did, I've got this piece of paper. This piece of paper is a tracing piece of paper for patterns. It's 27.5 inches wide because that's how wide our scarf is. And as you can see, that's a lot more material than it takes to make this sleeve. So here's my thought process. Hear me out. This sleeve is only roughly almost 13 inches from this point to this point. So about 13 inches. That's just straight across. Now, what I thought we would do, some people will cut this in several different sections and spread it out to get the arch. And I think we could do that, but I think we may be able to kind of wing it. I mean, the arch is not, it's not some kind of really hard thing, I think, to draw. Fingers crossed. But I wanted to see how tall the arch was. And this is my 11 inch, or here's my 10 inch mark. Let's make it even. Math's easier that way. And it goes all the way up to about my 17 inch mark. So this is about 7 inches tall. And I think I don't want it to be super puffy. So I don't really want to extend that to make it puff at the shoulder. But I want to be able to extend this arch out for that 27.5 inches. Sounds crazy, right? Like I said, some people will cut these in like 1 to 2 inch increments and then spread it out and get the arch. I think we can do it without. So here's our piece of paper. Again, this is the width of our scarf. And I'm going to fold it in half. Or I'm going to try to fold it in half. I mean, come on, paper. Hello. So I'm folding it in half. Come on. There we go. All right. So now this will make it easier for us to essentially draw this curve. And I need to start, let's say this is about 2 inches. This part is about 2 inches tall. So now, of course, our sleeve is going to be long, but for the purpose of having something to stabilize by, we're going to go 2 inches up. Let me get my pencil. So we're going 2 inches up there. And we're going to go up, we said 7 inches here, right? So let me just make it easy on myself. That's about here, right? Yes. All right, so we've got to draw a curve from here down to here. Let's see if we can do that without too much craziness. Now we want to come in some, because you can see on the sleeve it comes in a little bit. So we want to come in a little bit like that, right? And then we're going to take this. I think it'll be easier to draw it down from here. So I'm going to go from here. And I'm going to start to curve around here. And I'll meet this right here. Now, this is not perfect. And you could make it taller. It's kind of hard to see. You could make it taller, and that would make it fuller. So let's just take it up an inch. I'm not looking for real full. So if I take it up an inch, get rid of this original one, it's going to give me a little more fullness, but not a lot. Okay, I've cut out our sleeve pattern, which looks like this. It is huge. I understand that, but again, we're working with a really wide piece of fabric, and I don't want to cut any of this fabric on the seams that are on the sides if I can avoid it. So we're going to use the full width of the scarf. Now I have folded my interfacing in half and then in half again, so we get 2 fold lines to cut this on. And I'm not cutting all of it. You can see I've got it hanging over the side here. I'm thinking I'm going to cut it like this, and then I'm actually going to probably cut some of the center out, because like I said, I don't want this to make the scarf stiff on the shoulders. So I'm not looking for, you know, Victorian poof. So all that being said, again, I'm just going to pin it to this interfacing and cut it out, and then we'll be able to iron the interfacing onto the scarf and cut it out from there. That way we will prevent some fraying when we're cutting out the scarf itself, the sleeve and the scarf itself. So we're just going to cut, and once I'm done with this, like I said, we'll turn around and we'll kind of hollow it out just to make the ridge that'll go up against the body of the shirt. And boom. All right. Now we don't need all of this center part. So let's just cut up. And we're just kind of winging this. This is not set in stone. I'm narrowing out the body of this interfacing. All right. So now this will go along the ridge of where we want to cut our sleeve out. That's the plan. Not sure if it'll come to fruition, but that's the plan. Is this an exact science? Nope. This is what I'm going to iron on to this. Now, the next question is, see how we've got hemmed edges all the way around. We want to keep those hemmed edges, which means when we fold this in half, we've got to figure out how long we want our sleeve to be, because it sure as heck won't be this long. That's about, that's almost 35 inches. That's almost a yard folded in half. And I sure as heck don't have a yard worth of arm. So let me gauge how long we want this to be. I'll probably go look at one of my other blouses that I have, figure out how long I want this sleeve to be, and then we'll iron on our interfacing up here, probably cutting off some of the excess from the fold. Okay? Okay, I did a couple of things to measure my arm length. One, I went and measured a blouse that I had that was long sleeve. And then I got real smart and I shoved my tape measure underneath my watch band, which sounds like a crazy idea, I know. But what that let me do was kind of hold it in place, and hold it in place in a spot that I would want my sleeve to come down to, which I like it to come over my wrist a little. So like that, and then I pulled it up to the top of my shoulder seam, and I got about 23 inches. So I'm thinking I'm going to do these 24. And the reason being is I'm giving myself a little bit of leeway, obviously, for about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I think that'll work. It's a real professional way of doing it. So now we've got to take our scarf and we've got to figure out where that 24-inch mark is. And I folded it in half. So this is the length. Folded in the length in half. And then I'm going to fold it again like this, just to make it easier. So I'm meeting all 4 of my corners. And that way I get a pretty true set of where that 24 inches is going to be. I'll just kind of shake it out here. I'll have to kind of line it up. Might have to put a clip in it to make sure it doesn't move too much. And I'm going to clip it over here. I'm not sure if this clip's going to hold it too well, but we're going to give it a try. Because like I said, this fabric is scarf fabric. It's flimsy. But I'll hold it up here too. Where's that fourth piece? There it is. Okay, I've got the scarf spread out and pinned with these clips as best I can to keep it straight, because this stuff will crawl. Which is one more reason I'm concerned about putting it on the machine. But I'm also concerned about ironing it. See how this goes. I wanted it to be 24 inches long. So I'm putting my ruler up here. That's at the tallest point of my shoulder. I need it to be 24 inches long. So I'm going to cut it first. And when I do that, hopefully that'll give me the ability to iron on one piece at a time and know the right length already. Fingers crossed. We're going to use this extra piece, some of the extra piece, to test the ironing, because I don't want to just melt this all over my iron. It is polyester after all. And we're just going to cut through here. And that is the piece that's going to be, these are the two pieces that are going to be our sleeves. So I can take all these clips off. Like I said, that was just to kind of stabilize it. Hopefully that's all of them. So these are two sleeves. Flouncy and pretty. And we're going to iron our stabilizer up here. This is the right side. Obviously, we're going to iron it on the wrong side of the scarf. And I'm hoping I'll be able to do this because this stuff, like, woo, it's flimsy. So let me test the iron out and see if this is going to work. Okay, this is kind of an odd angle, but I wanted y'all to see what I'm doing. I've got this on my regular ironing board because it's the only thing wide enough. I have pinned down the fabric in the corners using just the ironing board because it's padded, so I'm just pinning it down. And I put the interfacing on where I want it. And I've pinned it down. I'm going to use a pressing rag that seemed to help. Now this is an old rag, so I don't want to hear any grief about how terrible it looks, because it's going to look bad. It's full of stains. It's just an old pressing rag. And I'm going to put this down. I think it's an old cloth diaper. It might be I don't think it's a cheesecloth or a dish rag. And I've got my iron set not all the way to the highest heat because this is that polyester, but I've got it about midway, and then I've got it set to my first level of steam. And I went ahead last time and I wet down my fabric here to help with the steam. So that is where I'm at now. And you can hear my machine saying, "Oh, ready to go." But I don't think it is. And I just want to make sure I've got kind of an outline of where I'm going with this steam. All right. It didn't take much to get this to adhere last time, so I'm hoping it won't take much this time. It shouldn't. But I don't want to keep my iron in one place too long because it is, like I said, it's this thin polyester. So let me iron this on. I'll get the second one on, and then we'll have a cut line essentially to go by with the interfacing to cut our sleeve out, the arch of it at least. All right, let's see if this worked. It seems pretty well adhered. Yeah, I think that worked. So let me iron the second one on, and then we will cut our sleeves out. Okay, one more quick weird angle view. I'm putting a strip of this interfacing. The strip is 1 inch wide, and I'm putting it on the inside of the sleeve hole, the armhole, sleeve hole. Anyway, the reason I'm doing that is just for stabilizing. I don't want it to stretch too much. I don't want it to get out of shape when I'm sewing it. So what I'm doing is I'm turning the shirt inside out like so. And I'm putting it on the end of my big ironing board here. Being careful not to stretch it while I'm doing that. And it's a very tedious little process. Again, this is my 1 inch strip. I did not cut it to size, but this is about 22 inches. I'm just making sure that my serged seam allowance, the serge part of my seam that I left, again, for stabilizing, is tucked to the inside. And then I'm just putting this down on top of this. I was pinning, or tried to pin, but it's just too many moving parts on this one because of the curve. And when I get to a curve that is causes me a wrinkle here, I just clip the inside of the interfacing to give it the ease it needs. Keep that out of the way. This is a nice hot iron, and it's got steam on. You need steam to do this. Of course, you also need like 5 hands, apparently, to do it properly. So, anyway, and so like if it creates a wrinkle or anything like that, then I just clip underneath the interfacing and open it up, kind of like a, you know, how you clip seams to make sure that they lay straight. Same process. So again, this is tedious and it's not perfect, but I'm just trying to preserve the armhole without it stretching out of shape when I sew in the sleeve. So I'll finish doing this, and then we'll go over to the table and cut out the top of our sleeves, and we'll be sewing them together. All right, we have everything, all our interfacing ironed on, both on our sleeves and on our armholes in our original shirt. So that was a little trickier, but I wouldn't cut the strip any more than 1 inch wide. Otherwise, you come up with a lot of buckling. So I'm going to trim this to where the sleeve is supposed to be. This stuff is flimsy. So once I trim these out, then we've got to decide if we're going to put little pleats in or if we're just going to gather it. I'm leaning towards gathering, as much as I don't like to do that. I just don't like to gather. You know, there's always something that you don't like to do when you're sewing. Gathering's mine. I'll put buttons in, zippers, you name it, but gathering's not my thing. Anyway, so again, I'm just going to clip both of these up, and then we'll make that decision. Okay, I made the decision. Pleating was going to be kind of a pain. Gathering has a better effect. So I went over to the machine and I ran 1 gathering stitch at set at 4 millimeters around the sleeve, gathered it, and then evenly dispersed it. The thing you've got to remember is matching up your center of your sleeve, the top of your sleeve, with your seam on your shirt, your shoulder seam. And then, of course, pulling it to the point where you've got it meeting the seam under the arm. What I'm going to do is sew around this, and then I'm going to do it just like I did that lace last week, where I'm going to sew down the seam underneath the arm, And I'm not going to do that before I put the sleeve on. In other words, it's kind of after. I know you saw me do it with the white eyelet last week. So same process. I'm sewing it on, leaving this bottom seam open, and then when I get to the bottom seam, I will seam down it. And I'm going to have to be kind of careful because this is, like I said, real thin. So I'm going to test it on some of the scraps to make sure I get the right stitch length and tension before I do that. Okay. Once again, I've got the sleeve gathered and pinned right sides together to the shirt. The seam at the bottom is still open, and we will close that up once we get everything else around done. Remove that. Take that off. All right. Now I'm going to start at the bottom. And I'm not going to start right on the seam that we'll be sewing down, just at the bottom. Actually, I do it this way so we don't have all this fabric on the machine. Try to get your pins there. And I am just going to make probably about a 1/2 inch seam all the way around. Just trying to make sure that the ends are together and they're meeting. And let's get going. I've got the sleeves on, so now all I'm doing is I'm top stitching, and I'm top stitching from the outside, and what I want to do is push this raw edge towards the shirt so it won't poke out and give me problems underneath the sleeve since it's so sheer and everything. So I'm just putting a top stitch about maybe a 1/4 inch away from the edge, and that will keep that seam secure. I've also made another executive decision. When it comes to the bottom where the seams meet, I have decided to leave it somewhat open, and here's my reasoning. One, it's hemmed. It's already hemmed. It's not going to fray. It's not going to go anywhere. So I'm not worried about that part. The only thing I'm thinking aesthetically when I wear it is I may not want all of this flying open. So I think I'm going to kind of tack little spots along the way, maybe 4 spots down the sleeve, including the end down here. And that way I'll have the closure, but I won't ruin the fabric with a possible seam. And like I said, it's already hemmed, so it's not going to fray. So probably 4 little tacks, just a couple of stitches. I'm sorry, I'm making the camera shake. But right now, before I tack it down underneath the arm, I'm going to do the top stitch on the other sleeve, and then we're going to go try it on. All right, all my crafty friends, looks like we've got a success. I think this will definitely wear to the office. Granted, I'm wearing it with jeans right now, but hey, whatever. I did not sew the seam all the way up. I probably will take that tag out. All I did was put 1 stitch here and 1 little stitch here, and it keeps the sleeve closed without having to stitch down it and worry about whether or not I probably would have ruined this fabric by stitching on it anyway. So, pretty excited again. If you like this kind of content, if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.